$7,723. That's exactly what you'll pay in pure interest on a $5,000 credit card balance if you stick to the minimum payment, more than the debt itself. And that number's already sitting in your own statement in a box almost nobody bothers to open. And that's just one of 4 numbers your bank is banking on you never running. Take 2 people with the same paycheck, the same bank, nearly identical balances. Call them Talia and Owen. A year from now, Talia's over $1,000 ahead, no raise, no windfall, and Owen never screwed up in any obvious way either. The whole gap comes down to 4 calculations, and we're running every single one right now. 4 numbers banks build their profits on, the kind that never show up in an ad, a welcome email, or a thanks for banking with us text. None of them are secret. They're all sitting right there in plain sight, in statements and disclosures you've already got access to. All that's standing between you and them is 5 minutes and a calculator. Stick around for number 4. It's the one that's going to have you grabbing your phone to check your own account before this video's even over. Just pay the minimum sounds responsible. It's right there on the bill. It's the official number. The bank is basically telling you you're fine. Here's what it doesn't tell you in that same breath. Owen's carrying $5,000 at 21%. That's about the national average APR on credit cards right now. He pays the minimum every month, just like the statement tells him to, and feels fine about it because the balance isn't snowballing. It's just sitting there. Let's run the real numbers. At 20 to 21%, paying only the minimum on a $5,000 balance takes about 23 years to pay off, and by the time it's gone, Owen's paid roughly $7,723 in interest alone, more than the $5,000 he actually borrowed. He didn't buy a $5,000 thing, he bought a $12,723 thing, just broken up into monthly payments small enough that it never felt like a decision. This isn't some worst-case scenario. This is the standard, advertised, completely legal math behind minimum payment. The bank isn't hiding the rate. It's printed right there on the statement. It's just hoping you never sit down and do the actual math. Here's why the minimum is set up that way in the first place. Most banks calculate it as a small slice of your balance, usually around 1 to 3%, plus that month's interest. It's not built to pay the debt off in any reasonable amount of time. It's built so you keep making that minimum payment month after month without giving it a second thought. A low minimum payment isn't a kindness, it's the engine. Now compare that to Talia, who puts $150 a month toward the same kind of balance instead of just paying the minimum. That $5,000 disappears in under 4 years instead of 23, and the total interest drops from $7,723 to under $1,000. Nothing about the card itself changed. Balance, rate, issuer, all identical. The only difference is who actually decided that monthly number, Owen or whoever prints the statement. Here's a life hack that costs you absolutely nothing. Every credit card statement in the U.S. is legally required to show a box, usually right near the minimum payment line, spelling out exactly how many months it'll take to pay off your balance making only the minimum, and how much total interest that's going to run you. Almost nobody reads that box. Go find it on your own statement tonight. That one box is the bank quietly admitting the real number because the law forces it to. There's a second reason this trick works so well, and it's got nothing to do with willpower. Carrying a balance month after month, even while paying on time, keeps your credit utilization high. That's the percentage of your available credit you're actually using. That number feeds straight into your credit score, which means the same minimum payment habit quietly draining your wallet can also be quietly capping the score you'd need for a cheaper rate on your next car loan or mortgage. And that's just the warm-up. The number that actually explains how the bank can afford the minimum payment trick in the first place is coming up next. Here's a question almost nobody ever asks about their own bank. What does it actually do with your money the second you deposit it? It's not sitting in a vault with your name on it. The bank takes your $5,000, pays you something close to the national average savings rate, under 0.5% right now, around 0.4%, and turns around and lends that same money out, sometimes to a total stranger, sometimes back to you in the form of a credit card at 21% or higher. That gap between what you get paid and what you get charged on the exact same dollars has a name in the banking world: the spread, or more formally, the net interest margin. It's not even a secret number. It's a line item every public bank reports to investors every single quarter, right next to profit and revenue. The bank will happily tell Wall Street exactly how wide that spread is. They just never put it on a billboard for you. Picture it like this. You hand a tool over to the hardware store for safekeeping. They toss you a couple cents for the trouble, then turn around and rent that exact same tool to your neighbor for $20 a day. You'd call that flat out unfair if we were talking about a drill. When it's your own money, it just gets called the banking system. Take Talia's $5,000 sitting in a checking account, basically earning nothing. The bank pockets the gap between her 0.4% and whatever rate that money gets loaned out at. Over a year, $5,000 at 0.4% earns her about $20. That same $5,000 loaned out at credit card rates can earn the bank over $1,000. Same exact money, two wildly different outcomes, and it all comes down to which side of the desk you're sitting on. And it's not just credit cards. Auto loans, personal loans, even some mortgages get priced well above what depositors are paid, which is exactly how one pool of deposits ends up funding an entire bank's profit. To be fair to the bank for a second, that spread isn't pure villainy. Some of it covers branches, ATMs, fraud protection, FDIC insurance premiums, payroll. Banking's a real business with real costs. But the size of that gap is the part nobody puts on the table. A 20-point spread isn't covering overhead. That's a margin most other industries would never get away with saying out loud. Compare it to your phone bill or your power bill, where the markup over actual cost usually runs a few percentage points, not 20. Here's the life hack. You can't close the whole spread, but you can shrink your side of it big time. High-yield savings accounts, mostly offered by online banks, are paying close to 10 times the national average right now, some around 4%. Moving your idle cash there isn't going to make you rich, but it moves you from the 0.4% side of the spread over to the actually getting paid side, and it costs you one online application. Now picture a bigger loan, a car, a house, and a payment schedule that looks totally fair, the same amount every month, year after year. What that schedule doesn't show you up front is the order your money actually gets used in. Early on in any amortized loan, the bulk of every payment goes toward interest, not the actual debt. On a typical 30-year mortgage, for a good chunk of that first decade, you're mostly paying interest and barely touching the principal, even though your payment amount never budges. The banks set it up that way on purpose. They collect their profit on the loan up front while your balance is still high, and you don't get the satisfaction of actually paying down the principal until much later, by which point most of the interest has already cleared their books. Let's put real numbers on it. Take a $300,000 mortgage at today's rate of around 6.5%. The monthly payment comes out to about $1,896. In month one, around $1,625 of that is pure interest, and only about $271 actually chips away at what you owe, roughly 85% interest, 14% principal on the very first check you write. Stretch that loan out over the full 30 years, and you'll hand the bank almost $383,000 in interest alone, more than the loan itself, before taxes and insurance even enter the picture. By year 20, that split quietly flips, and most of your payment is finally hitting the actual balance. But by then, the bank's already banked the bulk of its profit, back when you were paying the most interest and building up the least equity. That's exactly why an extra $100 toward principal in year 2 does so much more than the same $100 in year 25. Early on, that extra dollar is going up against the part of the loan generating the most interest. Most people never check this. They just figure a payment's a payment. Life hack: anytime you make an extra payment on an amortized loan, spell it out in writing or write in the app that it should go straight to principal, not toward next month's payment. The bank will happily apply it the easy way if you don't say otherwise, and the easy way for them is rarely the fast way for you.
And it's not just mortgages. Auto loans run on that same front-loaded structure, just squeezed into 5 or 6 years instead of 30. The first payment on a car loan is disproportionately interest too, which is exactly why trading in a car early so often feels like, I got nothing for years of payments. You weren't building equity. You were paying down the bank's interest first. The fix is the same either way. Extra principal, paid early, hits the part of the loan currently costing you the most. One number left. Dollar for dollar, it's the smallest of the four, but it's going to make you angrier than any of the others because it doesn't hit everyone the same. It hits hardest on the people who already have the least room to take a hit. The overdraft fee at most banks runs around $35. Even after years of pressure from regulators, some banks dropped it, plenty haven't. Say you go $80 into the negative and your paycheck lands in 4 days. You end up paying back that $80 plus a $35 fee. Now let's turn that into a percentage rate, the same way a bank's required to calculate the rate on your credit card. $35 divided by 80 is 44%, but that's the rate for just 4 days. Stretch that same 4-day rate out over a full year, and you land around 4,000% annually. Not 40%, not 400%, 4,000% on $80 over 4 days. That's not a typo, and it's not a mistake. It's the exact same math used to calculate the rate on any loan, just applied to an overdraft fee. If a payday lender tried advertising a 4,000% annual rate on an actual loan, regulators would shut that down in a heartbeat. Wrap that exact same math in the word fee instead of interest, attach it to a regular debit card swipe at the grocery store or the gas station, and it's been standard banking practice for decades. For years, plenty of accounts got automatically enrolled in this courtesy overdraft coverage by default, meaning the most expensive way to borrow money in the entire industry was often the one nobody actually chose for themselves. And here's the part that should really get under your skin. In 2024, American consumers paid $12.1 billion in overdraft and NSF fees, and that number's still climbing, with 2025 estimates already back above $12 billion again. Research keeps showing the same thing. A small slice of accounts, under 10%, generate the vast majority of that revenue. It's not spread evenly across everybody. It's concentrated on the people living closest to zero, the ones who can least afford a 4,000% rate on $80. This has actually been a fight for years now, not some unchangeable law of nature. Regulators have pushed at different points to cap these fees, and in response, several of the biggest banks voluntarily lowered or dropped them, cutting total industry revenue from this category roughly in half compared to before the reform push started. A lot of smaller banks and credit unions never followed suit, which is exactly why the fee you personally pay still depends a lot on which bank you happen to be with, a detail almost nobody compares when picking a bank. And that's the fourth number. Look at all four together: the minimum payment, the spread, the amortization schedule, and the overdraft fee, and it's really the same play every time, just dressed up differently. The bank gets paid first, gets paid the most, and hopes you never sit down and run the numbers yourself. Let's go back to where we started, Talia and Owen, a year ago, with nothing separating their finances on paper. The only thing that's changed since, Talia actually opened that payoff box on her statement and paid more than the minimum, moved her idle cash into a high-yield account, and turned off courtesy overdraft coverage in favor of low balance alerts. Owen didn't make a single one of those three moves, not out of carelessness, just because nobody had ever pointed out that these four numbers even existed. A year later, Talia's over $1,200 ahead of Owen, not from a raise, not from a windfall, just from running four calculations her bank was never going to run for her. 5 years out, that gap doesn't stay the same size. It compounds because every dollar Talia kept on her side of the spread keeps working for her, and every dollar Owen lost to it never comes back. 10 years out, that compounding gap is the difference between an actual emergency fund and another decade of starting over from zero. So which of these 4 numbers have you never actually checked on your own account? If this gave you just one number to go check tonight, that's exactly the point of this channel. Subscribe if you want more of these, and drop a comment on which of the 4 hit you the hardest: the minimum payment, the spread, the amortization schedule, or the overdraft math.